All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Fun Night on Kirk's Law Corner. Wonder how many people thought I would not be here tonight, but I'm here. Currently a free man. Come on. Why is this not doing its thing? There we go. All right. Good to see you all. Hope you all enjoyed the views. I know that some pretty crazy things happened earlier this week, and I wasn't able to be here Monday, but I am here now. So I have a little bit of an announcement, and first of all, we're looking at getting a new office, new venue that's going to be big enough to at least start doing educational classes out of the office, law seminars, 9 yards. So if you'd like to help support, get us into this new building, would be greatly appreciated. If you could help support that and send those donations over there to the office right now, which is at 6477 West Fairview Avenue, Boise, Idaho 83704. Looking at trying to get in there July 1st. So it's going to be a huge jump in rent, but I think we can pull it off with doing some law seminars and stuff. Once we get in there and get going, it should become self-sufficient. It's going to be a little tough the first month, but I have faith in God that He's going to provide for this. This is definitely a step in the right direction. Getting the people together, at least locally. Again, it's just a step in the right direction that we need to take to advance the education part of what we do. It's quite a bit more space than the tiny little offices that we have now. So, and I want to thank all those that have given support. I greatly appreciate that. So that is in the works as of yesterday, and it's pretty much a go. It's just a matter of coming up with all the money to get moved in, and it's in the same business complex, which is neat. That not really moving far, but yeah, it's a building offset by itself. It's not actually connected to the main office buildings. So how about a Grange Hall? That would be nice. A Grange Hall would be really awesome for a much larger law seminar. And I am looking for larger venues. This venue calculated probably we might be able to squeeze about 40 people in there with chairs and tables. So with that in mind, it'll be limited, but it'll also be a little more personal, right? So again, that's just a step in the right direction in making this happen to bring unity here on a local level, and we can start working on remedy and relief. And this is what a lot of people are starving for. It's the multi-million-dollar question. What do we do? How do we do this? What can we do to stop this? What can we do? It's it's the same thing, same multi-million-dollar question. So the answer is reading means reading. and then you have to, get educated and then take the action. You got to take the right steps, file the right paperwork, and it's got to be filed in the right place. So, given with what just happened, and of course now uh, the cases that they didn't want to arrest me on back in December 24th, when I was at the 80 County Sheriff's Office and, demanded they bring out the warrants. They did not want to serve the warrants then because I informed them of they were fraudulently obtained. We were actually gearing up the office to address those unlawfully obtained warrants. So now I don't even have to address the warrants themselves, other than they're still were unlawfully obtained and violate due process of law and all that good stuff. But now it is brought to fruition to where now it's go time, which oddly enough, again, we had just discussed Thursday last week that we were switching gears and going to take on our personal cases. So, this is really going to kick off, and we're going to show the people how we do this, how to effectively defend ourselves. Now, there's a few things that I've already done preemptively, which is the lawful notification letters. Okay. Thanks, CC. See you out there from Alaska. About the facial hair here. I know it's getting shows my age, but hey. It's due process of law and rules of procedure. Not all of the rules of procedure are right, are lawful, but the basics are there, and if we read them and learn the documents that we need to file, and they don't have to be perfect, right? And I mean form as in format, as in the caption portion and those kinds of things on the right size of paper, and the right font and the margin. But they even say in the rules, it could even be written, handwritten. So, Tony Pellegrino, got to give it to him. He's old school. He actually hand writes his own documents. So I got to give props to Tony Pellegrino out there for manning up and handwriting all of his dockets. So, it's going to be fun, right? Because if it isn't fun, it ain't worth doing. And just got a little word from Trump talking about in a video, was talking about there's Tony right there. Much love, brother. How are you? To choose the path that is less traveled, and choose that path, and don't give up. I'll have to admit that when Chris got murdered, I did feel like kind of giving up here. But I had several people reach out to me and talk with me and tell me to keep going, and encourage me to keep going. My behind the scenes team members and stuff encouraged me to just keep going, right? Because this is what's missing in our society today, is education. The Bible talks about my people shall perish for lack of knowledge. And this was the whole purpose behind, doing my education and starting to reach out and teach people, is that I knew that the people needed to get educated because they didn't know how to effectively defend themselves. And, this has also been a learning process for myself, even though I've been studying as long as I have. There's still a lot there to take in. But once you get the basics down, you can kick their butt. And I have. And I know there's people that are saying, oh, I've never won a case. Well, they obviously haven't looked at the court record very well. I have, in fact, won several of my cases. And I've started to win more than I'm losing. Now, the thing is like with what just happened, that's not the end of it. There's lots of steps to take, uh, following due process of law. And like he said, I might be arrested or something, but it won't be today. Right. But it sounds like he's admitting that he knows that he might be getting arrested. But the reality is I'd already did place him under arrest. That's what be advised means. Arrest does not mean put handcuffs on someone and kidnap them and take them where they don't want to go. That's not what an arrest is. An arrest is stop doing what you're doing right now. You're deceased and desist because you've been placed under arrest. That's what be advised means. So, there's just more to it than just what just happened, and that's the end of it. And I'm just going to kind of leave it there. But other than that, things are going good. Things are looking up for what we're doing at the office, and there was a right. That'd be a good one. Maybe the new governor, Janice McGeechan or Ammon Bundy, will appoint me as the Attorney General of Idaho. Whew, man. That would be awesome because I'd be prosecuting public servants left and right. But make no mistake, there are people getting investigated and prosecuted. A little conversation that we had. We were basically informed, yes, there are open investigations, and they are currently being investigated. There is open investigations, so can't really disclose much more than that. But actually, my lawful notification letter was served on March 15th to the 80 county courts, to the Idaho Supreme Court, the governor, and the Attorney General's office. Now, here recently, we've had, in just like a few days span, in 1 week, we had the Ada County Sheriff resign or retire, supposedly. The head of the oversight for Boise City Police resign, and the Chief Justice of the Idaho Supreme Court resign. And then we just had another one, and I can't recall which one it is, but so we've had 4 people in a week resign from the top position. What's going on there? And why did that happen? Well, there are no coincidences. Not when it comes to this stuff. Okay? So, I'm just saying, there's things that's already been put in motion based on what I've already filed. And what is the duty of the Attorney General? To prosecute public servants. Now, in the state level, according to the Idaho stuff, can only prosecute county level and down. So that means anybody above county level, the Attorney General had to forward that up to the office, the United States Attorney General. Okay. That would be an indicator of why the Chief Justice of the Idaho Supreme Court may have had to resign. So start watching what's going on in Idaho, because things are starting to fall apart in Idaho. That's 2 major positions. The oversight of the Boise City Police, but a county sheriff and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the 2 top people, That's something, isn't it? Okay. So, with no further ado, let's get into some law. Aside from giving thanks to the prayer warriors out there and all the phone calls to the Ada County jail and everybody who prayed and did what they could do to try and get me out, I was sentenced to 2 days jail. So there was no getting me out. But I do thank everybody for coming together. And I was actually rather surprised how many people phone calls went around and how people came together really quick and did what they did. So just want to send those thanks out to everybody who did gather and pray and made phone calls. Greatly appreciate it. So I found this this PDF book here. Treatise on Constitutional Limitations, which rest upon the legislative power of the states of the American Union. This is a great find because this particular book actually cites, as we can see right on the screen right here, Vattel, Book 1, Chapter 1, Subsection 1, Joseph's Story on the Constitution, International Law, Beauvair's Law Dictionary. Why would they be citing from Beauvair's Law Dictionary? It's not a source of law. But I've taught from the Law of Nations written by Emery Vattel. I've taught from the commentaries on the Constitution by Joseph Story. So this book is actually like a compilation of all of the really good parts of these great authorities. And as you can see, I mean, they are recognized as authorities of law, especially the Law of Nations and the commentaries on the Constitution by Joseph Story. These were brilliant men of their time, of all time, if you ask me, and that's why we're still using it. You know, when we talk about, like in the Constitution, talk about a natural born citizen, it refers to the Law of Nations written by Emery Vattel, the definition of a citizen, those that are bound by the society, which would be Article 6, Clause 3 of the Constitution of the United States of America. If you're a member of the legislative branch, executive branch, or judicial branch, you shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. The word bound is the key word there. So, you know, that's what it is. Well, we'll have to, you know, that's we'll have to fix this real quick. All right. So, you know, these books are a great source of education, right? I mean, it's being cited in this treatise. It's used throughout the world, written by Emery Vattel, The Law of Nations. And it's cited in here, some of the ones that I've been reading from. So with no further ado, let's get into some basic stuff that's kind of a reiteration of some of the stuff that I've already taught, but it's great to have a different source. Let me actually get this a little bit bigger. One more time. There we go. All right, so this starts off constitutional limitations, chapter 1, definitions. A state is a body politic or society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. Okay, that right there says, number 1, Vidal, book 1, chapter 1, subsection 1. This is the preliminaries. I skipped it. So right here, a nation or state is and has been said at the beginning of this work a body politic or society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by their combined strength. So, now what is a body politic? It's a body of law, but it's policy. Body policy. As in Police, policy. Okay. Uh-oh, having problems out there. Uh-oh. Yeah, what the heck happened with my YouTube? Oh. No, for some reason, I'm sorry out there on YouTube. I know you can't hear right now. It's not broadcasting. I don't know what's going on. Although it says that it is, but it's not. Let's see if I can get this reconnected. Let me see. Something's going on with my OBS. It says it's stopping the stream, but see if it'll stand by here, Facebook. I may have to actually close. Yep. Let's try that. Okay, YouTube, you should be back, at least temporarily. Let's see if that fixes that. We'll pick up where we left off here in just a second. See if that's okay. So we're good. All right. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. OBS has quit broadcasting for a second. So looks like we're back. Everybody can hear me out there. We're good. Yep. All right. Some of you might have to refresh. Of course, you can't hear me if you're all locked up, but all right. So back to the treatise on the constitutional limitations here. The terms nation and state are frequently employed not only in the law of nations, but in common parlance as importing the same thing, importing, bringing into being. But the term nation is more strictly synonymous with people. And while a single state may embrace different nations or peoples, a single nation will sometimes be so divided politically as to constitute several states. Well, that's what we have, right? We have different states of being. Okay. In American constitutional law, the word state is applied to the several members of the American Union, while the word nation is applied to the whole body of the people embraced with the jurisdiction of the federal government. In American constitutional law, the word state is applied to the several members of the American Union. So if the nation is built on the people and we have individual states of being within our one nation, that's because we're self-governed. And in reality, each state, what we call state, was actually a country. When we look at the map and, you look at some of the other nations, they're all listed as countries. But when we look at the United States, we don't look at them the same as a country, individual countries. Why not? So, okay, is that going? All right, what's going on there? All right. Okay. State is a body, politic, or society, man, together for the purpose of promoting mutual safety. Oh, that got bumped, huh? Oh, it's because I. Okay. Sovereignty, as applied to states, imports the supreme, absolute, uncontrollable power by which any state is governed. A state is called a sovereign state when this supreme power resides within itself, whether resting in a single individual or in a number of individuals, or in the whole body of the people. Now, what's number 4 talk about there? Number 4, Battelle, book 1, chapter 1, subsection 2, story on the Constitution. Imagine that. In the view of international law, all sovereign states are and must be equal in rights, since from the very definition of sovereign state, it is impossible that there should be, in respect to it, any political superior. I mean, technically speaking, isn't God the sovereign? So if God is the actual sovereign, because he's the one that created all things, and he endows us, our creator endows us with certain unalienable rights. In my mind, that's endowing us with sovereignty. So, the sovereignty of a state commonly extends to all the subjects of government within the territorial limits occupied by the associated people which compose it, and except upon the high seas, which belong equally to all men, like the air, and no part of which can rightfully be appropriated by any nation. The dividing line between sovereignties is usually a territorial line. Well, imagine that. Like between Canada and Mexico, those are territorial lines. But we also have territorial lines in what we would call our states, but they are actual individual territories. Like when I look up the Organic Act for the territory of Idaho. So in American Constitution, however, there is a division of the powers of the sovereignty between the national and state governments by subjects. Now, that what we're talking about subjects here are subject matter jurisdiction. The former being possessed of supreme, absolute, and uncontrollable power over certain subjects throughout all the states and territories, while the states have the like complete power within their respective territorial limits over other subjects. In regard to certain other subjects, the states possess powers of regulating which are not sovereign powers, inasmuch as they are liable to be controlled or, for the time being, to become altogether dormant by the exercise of power vested in the general government in respect to the same subjects. So when we talk about Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, the Commerce Clause, that's a power that's delegated to the national government, federal government, okay? So therefore, whatever the federal government creates, which again, what makes up the federal government? Isn't it all of the states? I mean, aside from the president and the vice president and you know, the heads of the federal government. But when you look at the legislature, the legislative branch of the federal government, they're all delegates sent from the states. So again, this is a one of a kind form of government. There is no other form of government on this planet that is the same. Not one. So we delegated certain subjects to certain parts of the government. And this is part of the reason, and it's written in Article 4, Section 4, to guarantee a republican form of government. Okay? So that way, that portion of the law under the certain subject matter jurisdiction was synonymous throughout the whole nation. So that way, all of the states assembled in Congress make the whole law for the entire nation. That way, every state has a say in the law that's being created. Now, the question is under the subject matter jurisdiction, who does it actually apply to? Would have to be bound by that, whatever gets created. So, in my mind, if you're not bound by the Constitution, how can you be bound by anything created under it? Just logic and reason here. So, a constitution is sometimes defined as the fundamental law of a state, containing the principles upon which the government is founded, regulating the division of the sovereign powers, and directing to what persons each of these powers is to be confided, and the matter in which it is to be exercised. Now look at, they're using persons and people, and later on mankind, the free inhabitants, which is what the Articles of Confederation talks about, free inhabitants. So we look at this and go, wait a minute, there's definitely different types of people. Now, I've showed this before, but I'm going to do it again anyways. Let me see if I can pull this up. Should be right here. Bingo. Oh, that's not going to work, is it? So in the English Bill of Rights here of 1689, we're going to talk about in their proper persons. Okay? Let's back up here. Then called and known by the names and style of William and Mary, Prince and Princess of Orange, being present in their proper persons. Person is prince and princess, but their names is William and Mary. The style of their proper person is prince and princess. So in like kind, we would say governor. We would say, like for Idaho, Brad, in his proper person, acting as governor. Or like for me, Kirk, acting in my proper person as owner of Kirk's Law Corner LLC. Because Kirk's Law Corner LLC is a person. The same with Idaho Notary Public. Okay, that's in a proper person, having all the rights and emoluments of that office. I am, in fact, an officer of the state of Idaho. I like to throw this around a little bit. They say law enforcement officer. Well, what do you think an Idaho Notary Public is? Having all the rights and emoluments of that office. because that's what my license says I have. I have all the rights and emoluments of the office. Okay. So trying to give this, people want to talk about, well, what the heck is a person? Well, here it is in history from the English Bill of Rights, an example what a person is. And which, like when we talk about Hale versus Henkel, there's a private side and a public side. And the government doesn't have any authority over on the private side. Because when you're in the private, we receive nothing therefrom. And there's no duty for us to open our books and papers for an inspection on suit of the state. The state cannot sue us in the private. They don't have personal jurisdiction. They only have personal jurisdiction over that which they create or that which is created, such as governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, sheriff. Those are all emoluments. And those are the persons that they have personal jurisdiction over. Oh, there is one other ones that I actually wanted to bring this up. Ultimately, one of my favorites, right? American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 1. The very, very, very beginning of American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law. Because we're right here talking about defining the Constitution and being fundamental law and all the good stuff there. Starts out, definition and nature of Constitution and constitutional law. As used herein, the word Constitution means a declaration of fundamental laws or principles for the government of a nation or state. A constitution represents the supreme written will of the people regarding the framework for their government. Where a constitution asserts a certain right or lays down a certain principle of law or procedure, it speaks for the entire people as their supreme law. So, like what just happened to me, violates Article 1, Declaration of Rights, laying down the law, Section 13, the right to due process of law. So let's keep reading here because, wait a minute, what does this say? It speaks for the entire people as their supreme law, and it is the paramount authority for all that is done in pursuance of its provisions. A constitution thus embodies fundamental values and articulates the citizens' common aspirations for constitutional governance and the rule of law. A state constitution is likewise the supreme written will of the people of a state regarding the framework for their government and is subject only to the limitations found in the federal constitution. Although a constitution may be either written, as in the case of the United States, or unwritten, as in the case of Great Britain, the word constitution, as applied to the organization of our federal and state governments, always implies a written document, which is understood to have been enacted by the direct action of the people, providing for the form of their government and defining the powers of the several departments within it, thus creating a fundamental law which is absolute and unalterable except through amendment by the people from which it emanated. Okay, so we want to look at that real quick. Okay, let's do that. So this is the supreme written will of the people, right? This is the paramount. It's absolute, unalterable. You cannot alter this except for by and through the way it was created, which that's what this next part says. The next part on the constitutional limitations. This is Article 1, Section 13, guarantees in criminal actions and due process of law. So don't confuse the two. Due process of law is due process of law, period. Not only in criminal. In all criminal prosecution, the party accused shall have the right to a speedy and public trial, to have the process of the court, to compel the attendance of witnesses in his behalf, and to appear and defend in person and with counsel. It does not say to be represented by a member of the bar. This is the law that was laid down, because declarations lay down the law, and it's a declaration of rights. No person shall be twice put in jeopardy for the same offense, nor be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Now, that's a semicolon. So the next statement of fact, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. There is a process that is due to deprive life, liberty, property, or the pursuit of happiness. And that process comes from the common law, which I'm going to show you here in just a minute in the book. So we'll go back to that. So the Constitution, sometimes defined as the fundamental law of the state, containing the principles. See, principles like the plus sign, the minus sign, the division sign. Okay? Those are principles of mathematics that no man can change. When mathematics was created, that's it. Those principles are immutable, unalterable. They are, in fact, absolute, and they apply equally every time. Or you're in the wrong, period. Everybody knows that one, right? Well, at least most everybody does. 2 plus 2 equals 4. If I were to tell you 2 plus 2 equals 5, you'd think I'm nuts. So why aren't we applying that fundamental principle to the principles of law, the fundamental law, the principles of law, that which was laid down, ordained, or established, not enacted, and not just written by a set of men, because that would be foreign to our form of government. Now, containing the principles upon which government is founded, regulating the division of the sovereign powers, and directing to what persons each of these powers is to be confided, and the manner in which it is to be exercised. Oh, really? That's right. The Constitution dictates the emoluments of that office. The Constitution dictates the powers and how they are to be exercised. Well, it doesn't say that I can't do that. No. It doesn't say that you can, which is what this also says. Perhaps an equally complete and accurate definition would be that body of rules and maxims in accordance with which the powers of sovereignty are habitually exercised. In a much qualified and very imperfect sense, every state may be said to possess a constitution. That is to say, some leading principle has prevailed in the administration of its government until it has become an understood part of its system, to which obedience is expected and habitually yielded, like the hereditary principle in most monarchies and the custom of choosing the chieftain by the body of the people which prevails among some barbarous tribes. But the term constitutional government is applied only to those whose fundamental rules or maxims not only locate the sovereign power in individuals or bodies designated or chosen in some prescribed manner, but also define the limits of its exercise so as to protect individual rights and shield them against the assumption of arbitrary power, like what just happened to me. That's an usurpation of power. He assumed a power and acted arbitrarily outside of the law of creation, the Constitution. The number of these is not great, and the protection they afford to individual rights is far from being uniform, right? In American constitutional law, the word constitution is used in a restricted sense, as implying the written instrument agreed upon by the people of the Union or of any one of the states as the absolute rule of action and decisions for all departments and officers of the government, all of them. Imagine that. In respect to all the points covered by it, until it shall be changed by the authority which established it, and in opposition to which any act or regulation or any such department or officer or even of the people themselves will be altogether void. That's right. Anything that comes in conflict with the Constitution is void for any effect. Marbury versus Madison. Article 6, Clause 2. The judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of a state to the contrary are notwithstanding. They are void for any effect. Okay. So in American constitutional law, the word constitution is okay. Get down here, void. Okay. The term unconstitutional law must vary in its meaning in different states, according as the powers of sovereignty are or are not possessed by the individual or body which exercises the powers of ordinary legislation. Where the lawmaking department of a state is restricted in its powers by a written fundamental law, as in the American states, we understand by unconstitutional law one which, being opposed to the fundamental law, is therefore in excess of legislative authority and void. Indeed, the term unconstitutional law, as employed in American jurisprudence, is a misnomer and implies a contradiction. That enactment which is opposed to the Constitution being in fact no law at all. Gold mine, eh? Again, all it's doing is reiterating the other books that I've already read from. But where the theory of, now those footnotes are pretty good to read, but in the theory of the government, the complete sovereignty is vested in the same individual or body which enacts the ordinary laws. Any law, being an exercise of power by the sovereign authority, could not be void, but if it conflicted with any existing constitutional principle, must have the effect to modify or abrogate such principle instead of being nullified by it. This must be so in Great Britain with every law not in harmony with the pre-existing constitutional principles, since by the theory of its government, Parliament exercised sovereign authority and may even change the Constitution at any time, as in many instances it is done by declaring its will to that effect. Now that's in the monarchy. Now watch. And when thus the power to control and modify the Constitution resides in the ordinary lawmaking power of the state, the term unconstitutional law can mean no more than this: a law which, being opposed to the settled maxims upon which the government has habitually been conducted, ought not to be or to have been adopted. If it's contrary to the Constitution, it is in fact void, and it is not law. It follows, therefore, that in Great Britain, constitutional questions are for the most part to be discussed before the people or the Parliament, since the declared will of the Parliament is the final law. But in America, after a constitutional question has been passed upon by the legislature, there is generally a right of appeal to the courts when it is attempted to put the will of the legislature in force. So notice that it says constitutional question has been passed upon by the legislature. Okay? Then to the courts. For the will of the people, as declared in the Constitution, is the final law. And the will of the legislature is only law when it is in harmony with, or at least is not opposed to, that controlling instrument which governs the legislative body equally with the private citizen. Okay, the government of the United States is existing representative of the national government, which has always in some form existed over the American states. Before the Revolution, the powers of government, which were exercised over all the colonies in common, were so exercised as pertaining either to the Crown of Great Britain or to the Parliament. But the extent of those powers and how far vested in the Crown and how far in the Parliament were questions never definitively settled, and which constituted subjects of dispute between the mother country and the people of the colonies, finally resulting in hostilities. That the power over peace and war, the general direction of commercial intercourse with other nations, and the general control of such subjects as fall within the province of the international law were vested in the home government, and that the colonies were not, therefore, sovereign states in the full and proper sense of that term, were never seriously disputed in America, and indeed were often formally conceded. And the disputes related to questions as to what were or were not matters of international regulation, the control of which the colonists insisted should be left exclusively to themselves. So, you know, the Stamp Act and the Tax Act, right? The Tea Party. No, those are unlawful taxation. You cannot tax us that way. We don't consent. You don't have that authority. You're extending admiralty jurisdiction, the water, onto the land, and you don't have jurisdiction there. You're extending admiralty jurisdiction beyond its ancient limits. So, besides the tie uniting the several colonies to the Crown of Great Britain, there had always been a strong tendency to a more intimate and voluntary union whenever circumstances of the danger threatened them, and this tendency led to the New England Confederacy of 1643. Oh, you mean there was other things going on before 1776? You betcha. Why do you think the English Bill of Rights came about in 1689? We're about to discover what happened there, or at least have an indication right here. So there was led to the New England Confederacy of 1643 to the Temporary Congress of 1690. Uh-oh. To the plan of union agreed upon in Convention of 1754, but rejected by the colonies as well as the Crown. To the Stamp Act Congress of 1765, and finally to the Continental Congress of 1774. Wonder how many people knew about those particular things right there. There was some stuff going on there with the Virginia. That's right. The Virginia Corporation. They were trying to take out the Virginia Corporation, who had the charters clear back to 1606. There was a little bit of an issue in this particular time period. Which is what the English Bill of Rights was, the end of that. That was the settled English Bill of Rights, but settled those issues there in America. Let's see. And as well as the Crown and to the Stamp Act, and finally, well, when the difficulties with Great Britain culminated in actual war, Congress of 1775 assumed to itself those powers of external control, which before had been conceded to the Crown or to the Parliament, together with such other powers of sovereignty as it seemed essential a general government should exercise, and became the national government of the United Colonies. By this body, war was conducted, independence declared, treaties formed, and admiralty jurisdiction exercised. It is evident, therefore, that the states, though declared to be sovereign and independent, were never strictly so in their individual character, but that they were always, in respect to the higher powers of sovereignty, subject to the control of the central power, right? And it was, right? And were never separately known as members of the family of nations. We were not. America at that time was not actually an independent sovereign nation until the Lee's Resolution, not the Declaration of Independence. This is a lie. But I'll show you. Because, evidence. June 7th, 1776. Now notice the timeline here. Resolution introduced to the Continental Congress by Richard Henry Lee, Virginia, proposing a Declaration of Independence. Resolved that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought to be, totally dissolved. This is the document that told Great Britain to kick rocks. That it is expedient forthwith to take the most effectual measures for forming foreign alliances, that a plan of confederation be prepared and transmitted to the respective colonies for their consideration and approbation. Now, source, documents illustrative of the formation of the Union of the American States. Government Printing Office, 1927, House Document number 398. Selected, arranged, and indexed by Charles C. Tansill. Now, the next document right there, June 12th. Now, just for knowledge here, the Lee's resolution was actually ratified July 2nd. This is June 12th. Now, in my book that I have, the Annals of America, Volume 2, has the Virginia Declaration of Rights in it. And in the upper portion of the, like a preamble to, it talks about how the Virginia Declaration of Rights is the theoretical foundation of all government. Why Virginia? Because everything is based out of Virginia at this time. And we'll go back over here to the Treatise on Constitutional Limitations. Because when we get into here, it actually talks about Virginia. Some of you may or may not know about the Virginia Plan, the Virginia Corporation. There was also another corporation. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right this second. I know, odd for me not to remember something, but hey, sometimes. Let's see. The Declaration made them sovereign and independent states. Jurisdiction and substituting a national government of their own creation. Nation. This is what created the nation. And we have to lay down the law of the nation. And we have to establish or declare. It's actually declare, not establish. Declare. That's done through declarations. We have to declare the ideology. That's what the Virginia Declaration of Rights does. It is the theoretical foundation of all government. Okay? So, because of that, that is our ideology, declaring Christianity as our ideology. Now, June 12th, that's what happened. But while national powers were assumed by and conceded to the Congress of 1775, 1776, that body was nevertheless strictly revolutionary in its character. And like all revolutionary bodies, its authority was undefined. It could be limited only, first, by instructions to individual delegates by the states choosing them. Second, by the will of the Congress. And third, by the power to enforce that will. As in the latter particular, it was essentially feeble. The necessity for a clear specification of powers, which should be exercised by the national government, became speedily apparent and led to the adoption of the Articles of Confederation. But those articles did not concede the full measures of power essential to the efficacy of a national government at home, the enforcement of respect abroad, or the preservation of the public faith or public credit. And the difficulties experienced induced the election of delegates to the Constitutional Convention held in 1787, by which a constitution was formed which was put in operation in 1789. as much larger powers were vested by this instrument in the general government than had ever been exercised in this country by either the crown, the parliament, or the revolutionary Congress, and larger than those conceded to the Congress under the Articles of Confederation. The assent of the people of the several states was essential to its acceptance, and a provision was inserted in the Constitution that the ratification of the conventions of 9 states should be sufficient for the establishment of the Constitution between the states so ratifying the same. But I'm going to take exception to that because there is a clause in the Articles of Confederation that says that it's perpetually invoidable, right? The union is to be perpetual and it is invoidable. And then the other one is that the talk about that in order to change it, it has to be unanimous of all the states. That's a clause in the contract. Social compact contract. So 9 states is not sufficient to ratify the same. So, in fact, the Constitution was ratified by conventions of delegates chosen by the people in 11 of the states before the new government was organized under it. And the remaining 2, North Carolina and Rhode Island, by the refusal to accept and by the action of the others in proceeding separately, were excluded altogether from the national jurisdiction, which before had embraced them. So you can see there was a little bit of a problem. North Carolina and Rhode Island took exception. Well, if you don't have unanimous consent of all 13 colonies, according to the clause, it's void. That would be that constitutional law, right? Which one came first, the Articles of Confederation or the Constitution of the United States of America? I believe the Articles of Confederation came first. Just by its own date. And I'll show you the clause I'm referring to. She'll be up the top. Let's see. See, and this is the one they take out of construe. Unless 9 states assent to the same, nor shall a question on any other point, except for adjourning from day to day to be determined unless the votes of the majority of the United States in Congress assemble. Now, this one, Congress of the United States shall have the power to adjourn at any time. Wait. See, here it is, talking about the voice of 9 states in Congress of the United States assembled. 9 states, 9 states, 9 states. Now, this one right here. Every state shall abide by the determination of the United States and Congress assembled on all questions which by this confederation are submitted to them, and the articles of this confederation shall be inviolably observed by every state, and the union shall be perpetual, nor shall any alteration at any time hereinafter be made in any of them, unless alteration be agreed to in Congress of the United States, and be afterwards confirmed by the legislatures of every state. That clause right there, you cannot make the Articles of Confederation void. You can't even alter any of it at any time unless you have all of them. Now, what's the thing about the 9 states? Okay, there were certain things that they could do with 9 states. But the one thing they can't do is alter the Articles of Confederation or make it void. So either A, The Articles of Confederation are in full force and effect right now, today, June 11th, 2021, or the Constitution of the United States of America is wholly void for any effect for violation of Article 13 of the Articles of Confederation. Principles. That is the principle that is required to alter the Articles of Confederation, and it shall be inviolably observed by every state, and the Union shall be perpetual, like it says in the beginning of the Constitution, the preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, more. That is an indicator that we already had a perfect union. We just made it more perfect. So therefore, even based on the preamble, the Articles of Confederation are in fact in full force and effect in conjunction with the Constitution. The Constitution is an overlay of the Articles of Confederation. No time can you get rid of the Articles of Confederation. It is, in fact, a succession of law. So there are certain things in the Articles of Confederation which need to be understood. Freedom of speech and debate in Congress shall not be impeached or questioned in any court place outside of Congress. The members of Congress shall be protected in their persons. Members of Congress shall be protected in their persons from arrest and imprisonments during the time of their going to and from and attendance in Congress, except for treason, felony, or breach of the peace. That's right. They're not above the law. This is also in the Constitution. So, they did write a lot of this in the Constitution. How about that? No granting of a title of nobility, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8. Well, it's right there in Article 6. Now, no vessel of war shall be kept up in time of peace by any state, except such number only as shall be deemed necessary for the United States and Congress assembled for the defense of such state or its trade. Nor shall any body of forces be kept up by any state in time of peace, except such number only as in the judgment of the United States and Congress assembled shall be deemed requisite to garrison the forts necessary for the defense of such state. But every state shall always keep up a well-regulated and disciplined militia, sufficiently armed and accoutred, and shall provide and constantly have ready for use in public stores a due number of filed pieces of tents and proper quantity of arms, ammunition, and campage equipment. That's supposed to be in the public stores. Where does it say, oh, but you got to do a background check to buy a gun, to buy arms and ammunition, camp equipment? Huh. You mean our government is supposed to make sure that they shall provide and constantly have ready for use in public stores a due number of filed pieces and tents and proper quantity of arms, ammunition, and camp equipage? A militia being necessary for the security of a free state. That's right. Our state of being free, in order to secure that, is a necessity to have a militia, not standing bodies of men. No armed bodies of men. None. All right. Oh, back over here to more reading because it gets good. Let's see. In fact, the Constitution was ratified by the Convention of Delegates of the States before the new government was organized in. And the remaining two, except the accepted that was proceeding separately, were excluded altogether. This exclusion was not warranted by anything contained in the Articles of Confederation, which purported to be Articles of Perpetual Union. And the action of the 11 states in making radical revision of their constitution and excluding their associates for refusal to assent was really revolutionary in character and only to be defended on the same ground of necessity on which all revolutionary action is justified, in which in this case was the absolute need, fully demonstrated by experience, of a more efficient general government. But you can't. But they did. Left at liberty now to assume complete powers of sovereignty as independent governments, these two states saw fit soon to resume their place in the American family, which they adopted, right? Under lots of commentary here. Oh, what's this? Federalist 43 by Madison? What was it? 6943? What was the other one? Contained in the Constitution. And new states have since been added from time to time, all of them, with the exception of one, organized by the consent of the general government and embracing territory previously under its control. The exception was Texas, which had previously been an independent sovereign state, but which, by the conjoint action of its government and that of the United States, was received into the Union on equal footing with other states. Without therefore discussing or even designing to allude to any abstract theories of the precise position and actual power of the several states of the time forming the present Constitution, it may be said of them generally that they have at all times been subject to some common national government, which has exercised control over the subjects of war and peace and other matters pertaining to external sovereignty, and that when the only three states which were exercised complete sovereignty accepted the Constitution and came into the Union on an equal footing with all other states, they thereby accepted the same relative position to the general government and divested themselves permanently of those national powers which the others had never exercised. The government of the United States is one of the enumerated powers, the national Constitution being the instrument which specifies them and in which authority should be found for the exercise of any power which the national government assumes to possess. So that's right there, right? If there is no power delegated, it does not exist. You have to be able to find it in there. Being it is the instrument which specifies the powers that are enumerated and in which authority should be found for the exercise of any power which the national government assumes to possess. Well, likewise in the states, because that's what the Constitution is. In this respect, it differs from the Constitution of the several states, which are not grants of powers to the states, but which approach and impose restrictions upon the powers which the states inherently possess. The general purpose. The general purpose of the Constitution of the United States is declared by its founders to be to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. Oh, that's right. We provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. To accomplish these purposes, the Congress is empowered by the 8th section of Article 1 to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, but all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. I think we're in clear violation of that right now. All of our taxes and duties and imposts and excises are not uniform, and they're supposed to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. It hasn't been used for that for a very long time. To borrow money on the credit of the United States, there it is. To regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. So it's to regulate commerce between foreign nations and the states and foreign nations and the Indian tribes. That's actually what the Federalist paper 45 actually talks about. It says that. It reiterates that clause. And being that it's between foreign nations and the states and foreign nations and the Indian tribes. But here it is talking about these powers that are enumerated. Here it is. This is it. If they can't point to this and find subject matter jurisdiction, it doesn't exist. Where is it? Oh yeah, 17, right? To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by the Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. So the powers have to come from here. You know, Article 6, Clause 1 talks about, that it be in the supreme law of the land and all laws which made pursuant to the Constitution. Those laws that are made have to be pursuant to the Constitution itself. These specific enumerated powers. If this power isn't enumerated that they're exercising, that's an usurpation of power. That's acting arbitrarily. Oh, but Congress is also empowered by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution to enforce the same by appropriate legislation. No, because there are no amendments to the Constitution. There are only articles in addition to an amendment to the Constitution, which no, you don't have subject matter jurisdiction over our rights. And then you fundamentally altered even just the Bill of Rights, which are articles, again, articles in addition to. And here we go. I'll just prove it right now. Let me show you. Got to have the evidence, right? Evidence to support the claims. Here we go. Let's look at the first legislative session for the Territory of Idaho in 1863, 1864. Let's look at the Constitution of the United States of America with the Bill of Rights as it was published in 1863, 1864. Here's the Organic Act, Territorial Act, Declaration of Independence, Federal Constitution, the Preemption and Naturalization Laws, etc. 1864, published. That says Territory of Idaho, doesn't it? Sure does. Imagine that they would publish the Declaration of Independence in here. Then the Constitution. And then the Bill of Rights. And look what it says when we get to the Bill of Rights. Ready? Uh-oh. Come on. All right, here it comes. Here's the Bill of Rights. Amendments to the Constitution of the United States of America. Oh, wait. Article 1. That does not say Amendment 1. Wait a minute. Let's get that blowing up so everybody can see it. Right there. Article 1. Congress shall make no law, none, zero, absolutely no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Religion is liberty of conscience. Where do we get that? I don't know. Gee. We'll just go to Article 1, Declaration of Rights here in Idaho. It's all the same because this is the common law. This law is common to all. Guarantee of religious liberty. The exercise and enjoyment of religious faith and worship shall ever be guaranteed. And no person shall be denied any civil or political right, privilege, or capacity on account of his religious opinions. But the liberty of conscience hereby secured. That's what religion is. Liberty of conscience. To think for ourselves. Now, to bring this back into perspective, back to the Virginia Declaration of Rights, so we understand the theoretical foundation of all government here, we're going to read about religion, that duty which we owe to our Creator, not to government. That religion, or, so here's the or being synonymous with religion, or the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it can be directed by reason and conviction, not by force or violence. This is the clause of law of this nation where we prohibit the use of force and violence against our fellow man. And therefore all men are equally entitled to the free exercise of religion. Again, that's that directed by reason and conviction, liberty of conscience, according to the dictates of conscience, what we think it is, and that it is the mutual duty of all to practice Christian forbearance, love, and charity towards each other. Now, notice that they removed the, oh, well, this has been gone in and it's part of the documents and blah, 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 blah. Well, let me provide some evidence of that by their own annotated constitution here. go to this source and rationale here, under the right to a speedy trial. But this shows us what the succession of law is here. The Magna Carta declared, we shall not. And they cut it out. They changed this. I've had this copied and pasted into a document before. But we shall not deny nor we shall not. It's to no man will we sell, to no man will we deny nor delay justice and right. Much of the same language was incorporated into the Virginia Declaration of Rights of 1776. And from there into the Sixth Amendment. Why even mention the Virginia Declaration of Rights if that puts that on the same plane as the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights, does it not? I mean, I didn't write this, but that's what it says. So, we'll go back over here again. I want to jump down here before we run out of time about the common law. See, I think that was page 82, somewhere around in there. No, 24, 25. I want to say it was 20. Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, Chapter 3, the formation and amendment of state constitution. Constitution of the United States assumes the existence of 13 distinct state governments, over whose people its authority was to be extended, if ratified by conventions chosen for the purpose. Each of these states was exercising the powers of government under some form of written constitution, and that instrument would remain unaffected by the adoption of the national constitution, except in those particulars in which the two would come in conflict. And as to those, the latter would modify and control the former. Okay, I get it. If there was powers that were delegated to the national government, the federal constitution, those powers that were in the constitution for the states would have to be, given up. But besides this fundamental law, every state had also a body of laws prescribing the rights, duties, and obligations of persons within its jurisdiction, and establishing those minute rules for the various relations of life, which cannot be properly incorporated in a constitution, but must be left to the regulation of the ordinary lawmaking power. By far the larger, more valuable portion of that body of laws consisted of the common law of England, which had been transplanted into the American wilderness, and which the colonists, now become independent nation, had found a shelter protection during all the long contest with the mother country, brought at last to the fortunate at last to so fortunate a conclusion. The common law of England consisted of those maxims of freedom, order, enterprise, and thrift which had prevailed in the conduct of public affairs, the management of private business, the regulation of the domestic institutions, and the acquisition, control, and transfer of property from time immemorial. Immemorial. There we go. Say that one 3 times fast. It was the outgrowth of the habits of thought and action of the people, and was modified gradually and insensibly from time to time as those habits became modified, and as civilization advanced and new inventions introduced new wants and conveniences and new modes of business. Springing from the very nature of the people themselves and developed in their own experience, it was obviously the body of laws best adapted to their needs. And as they took with them their nature, so also they would take with them these laws whenever they should transfer their domicile from one country to another. To eulogize the common law, what is going on here? It is no part of our present purpose. Many of its features were exceedingly harsh and repulsive, and gave unmistakable proofs that they had their origin in times of profound ignorance, superstition, and barbarism. The feudal system, which was essentially a system of violence, disorder, and rapine, gave birth to many of the maxims of the common law. And some of these, long after the system has passed away, may still be traced in our law, especially in the rules which govern the acquisition, control, and enjoyment of real estate. The criminal code was also marked by cruel and absurd features, some of which have clung to it with wonderful tenacity, even after the most stupid could perceive their inconsistency with justice and civilization. Prima facie evidence of what just happened to me. What are you, stupid? Did you fall off the short bus or what? That process does not frickin' exist in our form of government. I can't find that power delegated by Constitution. But on the whole, the system was the best foundation on which to erect an enduring structure of civil liberty, which the world has ever known. It was the peculiar excellence of the common law of England that it recognized the worth and sought especially to protect the rights and privileges of the individual man. Its maxims were those of a sturdy and independent race, accustomed in an unusual degree to freedom of thought and action, and to a share in the administration of public affairs, and arbitrary power and uncontrolled authority were not recognized in its principles. Imagine that. Awe surrounded and majesty clothed the king, but the humblest subject might shut the door of his cottage against him and defend from intrusion that privacy which was as sacred as the kingly prerogatives. So in other words, even if it was the king coming to your frickin' door, pursuant to the common law, you had the right to shut your door in his face and tell him to kick rocks. That was back then, under a monarchy even. The system was the opposite of servile. Its features implied boldness and independent self-reliance on the part of the people. And if the criminal code was harsh, it at least escaped the inquisitorial features which fastened themselves upon criminal procedure in other civilized countries and have ever been fruitful of injustice, oppression, and terror. A feudal kingdom was a confederacy of numerous body who lived in a state of war against each other and of rapine towards all mankind, in which the king, according to his ability and vigor, was either a cipher or a tyrant, and a great portion of the people reduced to personal slavery. For several hundred years, however, changes had from time to time been made in the common law by means of statutes. Originally, the purpose of general statutes was mainly to declare and reaffirm such common law principles as by reason of usurpations and abuses had come to be of doubtful force, and which therefore needed to be authoritatively announced, that king and subject alike might understand and observe them. In other words, all right, you guys are so freaking stupid, we actually need to put this in writing, because this was lex non scripta, the unwritten law back then. So then the monarchy said, okay, well, we're going to start creating statutes. Now watch carefully here, listen carefully, read carefully, comprehend carefully here. Such was the purpose of the first great statute, promulgated at the time when the legislative power was exercised by the king alone, and which is still known as the Magna Charta of King John, also known as the Magna Carta of 1215. Such also was the purpose of the several confirmations of the charter, as well as the petition of right and the Bill of Rights, each of which became necessary by reason of usurpations. But further statutes also became needful because old customs and modes of business were unsuited to new conditions of things, when property had become more valuable, wealth greater, commerce more extended, and when all these changes had brought with them new desires and necessities, and also new dangers against which society as well as the individual subject needed protection. For this reason, the statute of wills and the statute of frauds and perjuries became important. Imagine that. We talk about pursuant to the statutes at large. This is what we're talking about. The statutes of frauds and perjuries are in fact in full force and effect today. And the Habeas Corpus Act was also found necessary, not so much to change the law as to secure existing principles of the common law against being habitually set aside and violated by those in power. Exactly what just happened to me. Article 1, Section 13. You violated that, jackwagon. From the first colonists in America claimed the benefit and protection of the common law. In some particulars, however, the common law, as then existing in England, was not suited to their condition and circumstances in the new country, and those particulars they omitted as it was put into practice by them. Now, right there, what that is saying is, yes, we adopted and we brought the English common law with us in America, but we only adopted those particulars that were suited to us and suited to our conditions and circumstances. And those that were not were omitted. So, number 7 here. The common law of England is not to be taken in all respects to be that of America. Our ancestors brought with them its general principles and claimed it as their birthright. But they brought with them and adopted only, we'll have to jump way down. Well, maybe not way down. Only that portion which was applicable to their condition. And Chief Justice Story backs it up too. The settlers of the colonies in America did not carry with them the laws of the land as being bound by them wherever they should settle. They left the realm to avoid the inconveniences and hardships they were under, where some of these laws were in force, particularly ecclesiastical laws, those for payment of tithes and others. What are we talking about? Ecclesiastical laws? The law of the air, souls, and trusts. They were human trafficking them back then. And here you can read that they were leaving that crap behind. Technically speaking, we don't have ecclesiastical jurisdiction in America. It's not in the Constitution. Admiralty jurisdiction and maritime law is, not ecclesiastical. So, there you go. We'll call that a night. But this is a great read, and I'm only about 100 pages into this 843 page book. Right? Yeah, I miss Chris too. Yeah, technically speaking, it would be canon law. That's from the Roman Catholic Church, the Crown Temple Bar. That's not supposed to be here either. So, again, I'll just reiterate some stuff there that I talked about in the very beginning in case those of you who missed it. There's we're looking at moving to a new office, new venue, but it's within the same building complex, but it's a much larger space, substantially more in cost, of course. So I would like to ask for help and support in getting us into the office. It's going to give us so much space to start doing law seminars, education, school. Okay. Like I said, I've approximately around 40 people I can fit in the main area with chairs and a table. So if you'd like to help support that, I would greatly appreciate it. And let's see, let me send this. Okay, actually, whoops, no. Yeah, Fix It already put out the address over there on YouTube, and I'm going to put it out over here, even though it's on the Facebook page. Let's see, is it going to go? There we go. I also shared the kirkslawcorner.com. We're going to be making some updates on that to help people get to Patreon better. But yeah, if you could send those donations over to the current office, and we're looking at January 1st, or pardon me, January 1st, July 1st, moving into the new space. Yep. So the Suite C will be changing. The address will actually change because 6477 is the main office building where there's multiple offices. There's other build other sections of the main building. They actually have their own individual address, and then around the corner used to be there was a church in there. So this is going to be a great opportunity to expand and grow and provide better availability to educate the people. Instead of always looking for a venue, I will already have a venue. So we'll be starting doing actual classes right out of the building, which is which is ultimately what was the intent behind Kirk's Law Corner LLC to begin with, is education, media, and other services. So I greatly appreciate those that have supported and donated before. Those of you that are here wanting to learn, patriots, aside from the trolls, of course, we get those once in a while, and especially with what just happened, they're all giddy about me getting arrested and going to jail for 2 days. But like I said before, it ain't over. That's not the end all be all, let me tell you. So I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and I do want to thank my team members and everybody behind the scenes team for your love and your care, your prayers and support, being here, making help making this all happen. So, and I thank everybody else out there for your prayers and the phone calls and everybody that was concerned about my well-being, which I'm actually really surprised at how many people did, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people out here that I haven't talked to yet prayed for my safety and well-being. So I greatly appreciate you. You met the crazy dude, of course you did. Yeah, there's a few people out there trying to disparage me, but walk in truth, walk in the light. It's all I do. It's what I try to do. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too, right? And I don't claim to know everything. Never have. But I am pretty knowledgeable on a lot of different things. But things are, and oh man, Patreon, holy smokes, the meeting we had Wednesday night, that was freaking awesome. I look forward to more things like that aside from getting the classes going. So that's kind of going to be actually twofold. The classes I'm wanting to do at the office, I will also be recording those and putting those on Patreon. So I'm hoping to get this going as soon as possible, as soon as we can get into the new building and get set up. I've got a projector, I've got sound equipment to set up, to get all set up to do the education law seminars, that kind of stuff. So good times. I'm excited. So again, thank you all for being here. Much love, Patriots. Have a wonderful weekend, and God bless. We'll see you here for Monday Night Law, unless I'm not, but I should be here for Monday Night Law. I don't think I have anything pending for Monday that might run into an usurper or a tyrant who seems to think he can violate my right to due process of law and throw me in jail. But, things happen. So I'm here. I'll be here. If I can't be here, it's for a good cause. It's for a good reason. Okay. So much love, everybody. Thank you all for the likes, the follows, the shares, and the support. All right. Have a wonderful weekend. See you for Monday Night Law. Good night, everybody.